Hello and welcome to Breakfast with Pelle, Daniel and the Working Class History Book. My name is Pelle.
And my name's Daniel. And we're a son and father who like to read working class history, everyday acts of resistance and rebellion, often together while we eat breakfast.
We usually start by one of us reading out the entries for that day and then asking each other questions and thinking about what those events mean to us today. We're often unfamiliar with the event or with the context, but we're always end the conversation feeling a little bit wiser.
For the Anarchist Pedagogies Network Festival, School Revolt 2022, we thought we'd share some of those conversations with you.
Hallo, i dag det mars 15. I dag det to fortellinger. Vi skal lese begge av de. Men nå skal vi begynne med 08. The Rochester Democrat and Chronicle newspaper in New York State denounced anarchist women with this headline. Women anarchists have become the terror of world's police. This article went on to state the guardians of the world nearly always find a woman implicated when the ruler is stricken down. Emotional women lose sense of fear.
Okay, what do you think of this one? So it's a newspaper headline. We don't have a lot to go on here, and there's a little bit written, but I think we can maybe guess the main point that's been trying to be made by this newspaper or this journalist. So it's critical, right, of maybe two kinds of people, women and anarchists. And of course, putting those two together, women anarchists, is something that they describe as being emotional, losing sense of fear, that they are the ones who are behind various acts. They talk about a ruler being stricken down here, and that they become a terror for the world's police. I don't know who the world's police is here, although we might be able to guess. I mean, a lot of places in the US, or a lot of people in the US think about US as being a kind of like a global police in a way, or a police state that not only is policed locally, if you like, in the states itself, but also acts or functions as a kind of police for what happens in the rest of the world. But anyway, it's 1908, so I'm just wondering what this is about, because I've got a feeling it might be referring to a particular woman anarchist, a particular anarchist, Emma Goldman, but I'm not sure. And she was a really popular activist and speaker. So around this time, I think she was traveling around the United States, probably in 1908, I think, and giving talks to large groups of people, and talking about, socialism, anarchism, freedom, and things like that to people who, amongst other things, might not have felt particularly free, right? So they might have been working in low-paying jobs, maybe they were living in substandard housing and all those kinds of things, right? So I think she was kind of a very popular speaker, activist, and thinker maybe in general, right? So she was kind of really good at talking about like how people might live in different ways, right? Live freer somehow, right? And I'm just wondering if that's what this newspaper headline is about. I've seen it actually before online. I've seen like a clip from the newspaper, but it doesn't show, I don't think, much more than is written here. But notice how it says that about the world. It talks about the world's police. They also use this other term, the guardians of the world, right? Again, like looking after and watching the world, or deciding what happens in it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's, I think, probably what this newspaper is suggesting with regard to the US, right? And the US's position in the world.
Yeah, powerful,
yeah, but it's also like very, what's called, have you heard the term misogynistic? It's usually like, I think it literally means something like a hatred of women, but I mean, it's basically, you might say in a softer version, you might say it's like discriminating against women, right? So it's not only like a critique of anarchists, but it's also like drawing in women here, and then like talking about this, characterizing them, I think, in a negative way, or maybe trying to, at least. I'd be curious to know a little bit more about this.
Okay, maybe we should move on to March 15, 1917.
Okay, yeah.
Czar Nicholas II abdicated as the February Revolution swept Russia. Nicholas, already unpopular for his oppressive and brutal reign, became widely hated when Russia became embroiled with World War I. The war caused the death of over 3 million people in the Russian Empire, and labor shortages in the countryside drastically affected the country's food supply, causing widespread hunger and starvation.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is in Russia, right?
Yeah.
And Tsar Nicholas. Tsar is a bit like an emperor, or I think the word comes from like Caesar, right?
Caesar,
yeah. So it's a monarchy, a bit like a king, right? Have you heard about this before?
No, I'm not so familiar with Russia in the World War I.
No. So this is talking about the February Revolution, which took place in March. They were using a different calendar at that time. So Europe used like basically two different calendars.
Yeah, that I've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it takes place in March, right? And it basically means the end of the monarchy in Russia, and a little bit later, the start of what would, I think, later become the Soviet Union, which you probably heard of, right?
Yeah.
Which I think, came to an end in like 1991.
Yeah.
So yeah. But here we have a Tsar, or a king, if you like, who is extremely unpopular, right?
Yeah, was he like a leader, a dictator?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I guess the role of the Tsar at that point is different to the role of, maybe certain kings and queens today, right?
Yeah.
Who don't have that much power. They have some, but it's kind of usually...
Som I Norge, de har null. De der bare for historie, liksom.
Yeah, that's right. But it hasn't always been the case, right? So
før så var det mye mer.
Yeah. So that's been kind of pushed back in a way. And in some places then they've retained a monarchy, although it might be, doesn't have too much power. And other places they've completely abolished it, right? Taken it away completely. So I guess, so like, Russia is mentioned here, and I guess a lot of people think of France as well, a revolution there, and like those kinds of changes there. Yeah.
Both of these weren't so long today.
Yeah, they're quite short compared to the ones we read yesterday. Okay, should we finish there?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it was good reading. Yeah. Nice.